Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We're going to get started. Well, welcome to another Tiller-Hewitt Leadership webinar. My name is Tammy Tiller-Hewitt, and I get to be your moderator today. Today puts us over the halfway mark of this year's amazing lineup of leaders. So today we're going to talk about amplifying your consumer activation plan. And then if you can see by the slide, if you can see the slides, there's a QR code on there where you can register for the remaining sessions of the year. That is also where you can go and get recordings to all prior webinars as well. So if you are with us live today, we are in webinar mode, which means we cannot hear you, but we would love to hear from you by way of you putting your questions or your aha moments or any useful feedback in the chat. I always say, think about that as applause for your panelist. You can also get copies of today's recording in one of two ways. One, you can always go to our website at Tiller-Hewitt.com and download and listen to it over and over again and share it. Or second, we will send an email, or you will receive an email from me next week with a link to the recording where you again can listen to it over and over again. So the genesis of our leadership webinar is really for the 2 decades that we've spent working with amazing healthcare leaders across the country who want to consistently deliver strategic growth and measurable results. Our mantra at Tiller-Hewitt is always, not all business is good business. And that's why we always lead with strategic before we use the word growth, or for some of my smart friends who call it smart growth, which I love. But today, many organizations are experiencing a growth quandary. They want strategic growth, they need strategic growth, but most are able to find it or to deliver it in such a way. And then there's always the accommodation of it. So many cannot accommodate it today. And it's funny that 20 years ago when we started Tiller-Hewitt, we would get calls from healthcare leaders who had one of three challenges. One, they needed volume. 2, they needed help engaging their physicians. Or 3, they were hemorrhaging from their own physician enterprise that was mostly related with physician productivity or physician retention. And we could help with each of those. And for the most part, those organizations were then ready to accommodate the business that those programs lead to. But today, if I can be Captain Obvious for a second, the game has completely changed. And frankly, most organizations are nowhere near ready to accommodate the kind of strategic growth that is really out there for them to gain. And what's interesting is before we're ready for such growth, if we send sales teams out to ask for it, all we're going to do is expose operational issues and challenges faster. And then any of the growth that you've achieved will not be sustainable. So the results and what you've paid for the results are going to be for naught. So today we go upstream. And before we stand up any program today, we do what's called an operational readiness assessment. And it just does that. It just determines, are you ready for new strategic growth? And part of our secret sauce in our readiness assessment is stakeholder involvement. And I'm talking about maximum, significant stakeholder involvement so that they're also bought in to the plan and the solutions. And then not only do we talk to stakeholders in person, but we also do surveys of hundreds of frontline people within the organization, including the independent physicians and the employed physician groups, to really understand what are the barriers that they face when they try to do business with us. And then the third leg is data. I mean, we have to be rich in data, both internally and externally, to again, tell us what's going on in the marketplace from a referral perspective and just from an overall market dynamics. So the assessment then leads to this laser-focused strategic growth playbook, including what process improvement events need to happen before you can stand up or you can execute any plan. Because we've all experienced, we want the business, but they can't get through our front door. So we also try to fix those things before you send out this superstar team. So too often there's a misconception that once a plan is written, the execution piece is easy. And so there's less effort or resources put on the execution piece. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. Those are two distinct processes that take equal amount of resources, or I would challenge that the execution piece, it takes way more resources than the actual planning piece. So the top part of this slide talks about, it's really just talking about what I just talked about, the readiness assessment, the PI events. The bottom are what we call the execution engine. The bottom three are the horsepower that really brings the plan to life. And, you know, we've all seen statistics that say 70 to 90% of strategic failure has to do with poor execution. So organizations must invest more on the execution piece. So these are our proven ways that we can execute the playbook based on what the organizational challenges and opportunities are. So whether it's through a physician integration program, if they're having issues with ramping up the practices, the providers, or they're having retention issues, the middle is our gold standard program, which is the physician liaison program. We also have training and education, even if it's not a program that we've stood up. And then we have Tracker Plus, which is our PRM program that was built by and for liaisons. And we have some exciting news to talk about today as it relates to that, integrating claims data into that as well. So that's Tiller-Hewitt and how we are positioned around strategic growth and around the message that we'll talk about today. But a couple other things I want to remind everyone is we have a leadership podcast that is really designed for leaders who are looking to grow and want to learn from other leaders or want to learn best practices from other organizations. We have leaders who are on there who are so authentic and share some real insight on landmines that they've stepped on mistakes that they wish they wouldn't have made that maybe could save other leaders as well. And then last, I talked about the training that we have for liaisons and leaders of liaisons. We still have programs for the remainder of the year. So we have a couple 3-day workshops virtual for liaisons and their teams. And then we have a 2-day workshop for leaders of liaison programs. And interestingly enough, there's a QR code that you can go and find more information on the website. But interestingly enough, last week on LinkedIn, the daily sales post, which has over 1 million followers, answered the question to, do you think sales managers get enough training in their role? And you can see the answer with almost 3,500 people were only 10% said yes. So there's a huge opportunity, especially for leaders of liaison programs, because the vast majority have been promoted from within, which is awesome, but they're not equipped and they're not trained the way that they could be and should be, so that they're effective leaders and are really taking your team to the next level. So I'll be quiet about Tiller-Hewitt now, and I'll talk about today. So if you have not heard the news, not just for today, but in real life, 3 industry leading organizations have partnered to really bring an unprecedented strategic growth solution that includes both short-term, mid-term, and long-term strategic growth. And I am so thrilled to have leaders from each of these organizations here today to share their insight on how to amplify your customer activation strategy. So it's my pleasure to present these 2 leaders. Gentlemen, why don't we do a quick introduction? We'll go around alphabetically, virtually, of course. Adrian, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about you and your organization. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm Adrian Lawrence. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at ShareMD Connect. ShareMD Connect is focusing on engaging healthcare consumers and connecting those consumers to health system partners. As Chief Technology Officer, I lead our application development and data strategy. And we are focused on, again, the consumer space, generating demand for services for our healthcare partners.
Awesome. John?
Great. Good morning, everybody. John Barlow. I am the Vice President of Patient Activation and Consumer Innovation at Vizient ST2. Vizient is the nation's leading performance improvement company. And what that means is really we work with health systems quite a few health systems across the country to focus on both top line growth as well as bottom line growth. So cost control, spend management, but also new growth patterns, new growth levers. And in my business domain specifically, it's really focusing on the patient as the consumer and breaking down those friction points to help get the patient into the system, seeking the right type of care and retaining that patient for lifetime.
Oh, I love it. All right, Tommy, you want to wrap it up?
Yep. Hey guys, thanks for taking the time today. We're very excited to share some new consumer-driven strategies with you. For those on the line that might not know me, I'm Tommy. I'm our Chief Operating Officer at Tiller-Hewitt. In addition to THS operations, I lead some of our larger, more complex growth strategy system engagements and head up our Tracker Plus division.
Awesome. All right. All right, so let's talk about the objectives for today. We'll unpack them real quick. We're going to talk about how to amplify your customer activation strategy around how you strategically attract and retain new patients. We're going to discuss shocking and available data-driven proof. I love that, related to patient access to your key service lines and how you stack up against your competition. I don't know about you, but I like that report card to make sure that, we're always in first place. And then the third objective is how to best align stakeholders, which is a secret sauce that many talk about, but few are able to consistently deliver, that will enable faster, friction-free access, say that 3 times, for all of your targeted consumers. So first, I'd like to address the elephant in the room and pose the million-dollar question of why. Why did 3 leading organizations in their respective industry-leading space partner? And more importantly, what's in it for you? All of you who are listening today. So I'm going to go in reverse order this round. Let's start with you, Tommy. Given Tiller-Hewitt's track record, what was your why for this partnership and what's in it for them?
Sure. So before I start there, I'm going to briefly rewind. As Tammy mentioned, we're in the strategic growth business, rapid short-term strategic growth. But as most of you know, we haven't always been in the PRM business. For years, we spent our engagements and time relying on other platforms to sometimes inefficiently support the efforts of our liaison teams and programs. So with that in mind, we decided to develop our own PRM tool to add more value to our clients and have ultimately more control over ensuring that our liaison programs were optimized and our success was as effective as it could possibly be. Similar line of thinking here. So, the problem that we have faced is, even though our batting average is delivering $26 million of incremental net revenue in year 1, we've always known that we can do even better. Honestly, we could do so much better if the stars were always aligned, but sometimes they're not. So historically, our 2 biggest challenges have been 2 things. 1, a lack of consistent claims data, including a lack of usable data to aid us in the assessment of organizations and the assessment of market opportunities through our growth strategy work. And then ultimately a lack of usable data for our liaison teams to use to execute those strategies. So we relied on the claims data, or sometimes lack thereof, that our clients already had access to or subscriptions to. And this led to inconsistent data sets in even the best cases. And in the worst cases, it really slowed our progress while our clients obtained the necessary data from various vendors. So our assessment process sometimes was belabored by the fact that we were missing a key piece of the story, and that is what's going on in the market and where are our opportunities. And the second big challenge that we faced was a lack of a strategic direct-to-consumer strategy. So while our work and the work of our liaison teams has always been primarily focused on physicians and practices as the consumer to drive then referrals to patients and to work to remove barriers, strengthen, shift referral relationships in the direction of our client organizations, we also know that patients make decisions about their care as well. And more now than ever, the patients and consumers really drive, their own healthcare journey. So while we, again, always work closely with our clients' marketing departments, historically, we have been relying upon direct-to-consumer strategies that were either non-existent or weren't always as effective or aligned with driving the short-term growth in the way and to the areas that we needed to achieve off-the-charts results. So this partnership was conceived out of the same line of thinking as Tracker Plus, and that is, how can we guarantee that our growth strategies are executed at the absolute highest level? The solution, as Tammy mentioned, is that we've partnered with these 2 top-notch organizations to solve these challenges. And while I won't steal their thunder, I think together we have really cracked the code. From a data perspective, our relationship with SG2 has allowed us to have the right data at the right time to amplify our success in such a way that even we have been surprised with the results, from the assessment and strategy piece to ultimately, as Tammy mentioned, the integration of our PRM tool with SG2's Provider Connections claims tool. That has led to powerful data in the hands of our liaison teams at the touch of a button, tablet enabled. So now we have access to everything: internal, external data, PRM solution, issue management, et cetera, and it's all in one place. So now data is no longer out of our control. And the second is direct to consumer. And our relationship with ShareMD Connect has taken the guesswork out of attracting the right patients at the right time. And the crazy and more awesome part is to the right practices. This direct-to-consumer solution is unlike anything any of you have ever seen, and we're so excited to share it with you, and hopefully Adrienne is as well. And it couldn't fit better into our direct-to-physician strategy. And we believe we finally found a partner there that has a direct-to-consumer strategy that mirrors our strategic and amplified direct-to-physician and practice strategy. So very excited, and the long answer short, we now have a truly one-stop shop solution for short-term growth in the healthcare industry.
All right, well said. All right, not Adrienne, John, let's go to you. Why did SG2? No, everybody on the line knows that you guys are the premier authority on healthcare trends and insights and market analytics. And so why did you want this partnership, and what's in it for all the health systems and organizations that are listening today?
Sure, no, so thanks, Tammy. I think both the why and what's in it for you center around one word, and it's complexity. So, this focus on consumer strategy, activation, and retention that is relatively new here at SG2 and Vizient. My background's healthcare consumerism, physician referral management, and taking a look at just the marketplace today, where SG2 has strengths, where they have gaps, and then looking at potential partnerships. Because the complexity of healthcare is so massive, you need to have friends, and and those friends bring different sets of capabilities, different sets of expertise. And the more that you can find the right friends and really create strong bonds, the better off it is going to be for the end customer, which is, everyone on the call, the provider. It's, if we can take that complexity head on and alleviate it and create more of a seamless offering that is easier for you internally to navigate and pull in different stakeholders and say, I think there's a way we can solve some of these problems that are often, very systemic in nature, but also very broad and takes a lot of people's buy-in and come from a point of data. So the data insight piece is obviously a very strong strength of SG2. Acting on that is where we're looking for friends, and that's where I think both Tiller-Hewitt and ShareMD Connect really play into a nice comprehensive solution.
All right. Do you want to show any of your slides next, John?
Sure, I'd be happy to, and then I'll let Adrienne. I'll turn over some time to Adrienne to have him kind of put a cap on the consumer piece. But sure. If you look at like Vizient SG2's approach at consumer strategy, and really like how do we think of patients more as consumers, and how do we start to create that seamless, frictionless experience, it starts with the challenges that every health system has faced over the last, few years coming out of the pandemic. The pandemic just kind of highlighted the fact that the common held perception of patient catchment and their catchment strategies has really kind of been upended. The fact that you can no longer just rely on your clinical reputation and having, successful outcomes. You open up your door and all the patients are just going to flood right in. That is a fallacy, but has been kind of the overarching growth strategy for a number of years. And the focus of strategy And growth has been more mid and longer term of like, how do we get the right type of M&A activity? How do we, figure out our facilities plan? How do we do service line redesign? How do we do physician alignment, realignment? All those things are absolutely critical. But if you can't turn the revenue spigot on in the next 6 to 12 months, especially given where the state of the industry is, you're going to be very hard pressed to be able to get to that 5 and 7 and 10 year mark around strategic growth. So strategic growth still has those mid and those long-term points, but like the pandemic showed, strategic growth has to be thought of in near term, and near term to us is 6 to 24 months. So when we think about how do you get this strategic growth rapidly and impactful into your organization, we thought of really the 3 areas, and you can build up the slide, Tammy. So, and this really aligns with the slide that Tammy talked to earlier and what Tiller-Hewitt brings is, so the first piece is, practice, specialty, access, and operations. And I have a situational example there to show it's like, if you can't get people in at the practice level, at the intake point of your system of care, then driving volume is just going to be inefficient, ineffective, and you're going to create the exact opposite of the consumer experience that you're trying to drive. So first thing you got to do is tackle that. And, while ST2 has great data intelligence to show both clinical, operational, and claims-based data sets to show what I always say the quantitative piece of the equation, when we saw and we met with Tiller-Hewitt and we see their operational readiness assessment, to me, that is quantitative, but also more qualitative. They're on the ground, they're having these conversations with stakeholders. They're getting more of the context than just looking at the raw data output. And when you have both sides of the coin and telling you that story, your insights are more impactful and more insightful. So that's the first piece of when we're thinking about rapid impact growth, like you absolutely have to have a good understanding and a good handle on how you're going to solve challenges and build out a plan to overcome any kind of obstacles. The second piece is the consumer engagement, education, activation, retention piece. And, just historically knowing that a lot of these areas of focus are owned by different groups within the health system. If we can bring together a joint partnership with a joint solution, we create that simplified path forward to actually show, revenue generation and growth in the short term. And it breaks down the complexity, like I said, and it really helps the focus on, everything related to the consumer that typically would be focused on in a marketing perspective or a customer experience perspective, where you're looking to use digital tactics, marketing tactics to create that awareness in the market. But it's often done in a silo that even if you're effective in driving new patient volume in, if you don't have the ability to get them into the practice level, you're kind of dead in the water and you've wasted your marketing dollar investment. So we knew that was another key part of this equation. And then the last piece is really the physician piece. So the physician referral and the integrity of your physician network is absolutely the critical piece for driving complete and total value once you've solved your access and capacity issues. And when we look at this, and in my history and what I've seen in other organizations, is consumer and physician have always been kind of separated. And I don't think that was done deliberately. I think it was just the output of a number of different processes, both inside the system as well as ways different partners have worked, that there hasn't been a lot of that crossover. But what we're seeing with the patient taking more of a consumer-focused approach and being more discerning and being more out there trying to get a better and thorough understanding of exactly what my care path should be, the best advocate you could have is a really well-educated physician. So you also have to look at that physician as a consumer, but from a slightly different consumer perspective. They're a consumer of your health system because they are out there questioning, being just as discerning as that patient consumer, but more of like, why should I entrust my reputation with my patient and my patient relationship with your health system? And I think when you combine all those three, one, it's a natural alignment with, Tiller-Hewitt, what ShareMD Connect offers and what SG2 Vizient offers, but more so, it strips away a lot of the complexity and makes it more attainable, I think, in my mind. It's a stepped approach. There's a playbook we can put in place that actually helps to drive growth in the short term, break down internal barriers so you have less siloed work, work lanes and workflows inside your organization. And, the rising tide lifts all boats. I think this definitely applies to how we look at, rapid strategic growth. And if you want to jump to the next slide, again, the data piece, and I mentioned this earlier, the data piece is absolutely impressive when you look at all three organizations. So before we even start to build out a playbook, to Tammy's point, we do this operational assessment and both the quantitative and qualitative analysis. So from an SG2 and Vizient standpoint, we have the ability to look at market and service line opportunity. We have a revenue generator model that can look at, so we have a forecast called the impact of change that looks over organic growth in your market over the next 10 years. We took that and we kind of created an add-on component, whittled it down to the next 2 years, and then we laid in additional data. So seasonality, disease, mobility data, and some other data sets that really help you move levers in terms of what can I expect in terms of organic growth if this scenario happened in my market. And then on top of that organic growth, so this is the growth you're automatically going to get, from what our projections and our forecast said, even with some additional levers in play. We then have another window, another scenario where it looks what we call invested growth. This is where you can start to look at, like, if you employed, Tiller-Hewitt in some of the solutions they bring to market, or ShareMD Connect and some of the solutions they bring to market, how can you create strategic investments that drive additional growth on top of that organic growth? So that's a really interesting data component that is core to this offering. And then I look at like another SG2 piece, and the third one over is the network integrity assessment. So we have a tool called Provider Connections, and it looks at just what referral patterns, leakage keepage of your physician network. We're integrating it with Tracker Plus to have a true full PRM solution, but that data intelligence gives us a really clear understanding, and it gives, when the Tiller-Hewitt folks walk on site, they have so much additional intelligence around that network and how it's performing that we're already 2 steps ahead. We're starting out on the 20-yard line instead of back on the goal line. So look at that, and then the consumer piece, that's where ShareMD comes in. Organizational access, capacity, throughput, that's where Tiller-Hewitt comes in. And those 4 areas are flexible enough that we can lean in more on one area, we can pull back on another, depending on what the situation is at your system. Because if you've seen one system, you've seen one system. So I think the data piece is absolutely key to this solution. And it's why I started on this slide, really, because I look at what we're putting together with our partners as data-driven or technology-led services, managed services. And it's not enough anymore just to have the data intelligence to show you where there's gaps or where there's opportunities. You need to have a playbook, and you need to have a partner, and all 3 of us, that can hold your hand and help you navigate how to get success and how you get the short-term wins and that near-term growth, because that's key to really honing in on improving the overall patient and consumer experience. And that gets us to the last slide I have, and then I'll let Adrian talk over. And so I got to have something highly visual, and this is the larger why for us, because we strongly believe that, through a variety of different efforts, and you see new disruptors in the marketplace, whether they're PE or VC-backed companies, whether it's Optum, whether it's technology companies like Amazon and others, they're all trying to replicate every business that has been in the existence since the dawn of time about customer acquisition and customer retention. And for health systems, yes, long-term sustainability requires that you develop that long-lasting, if not preferably lifetime relationship with your patient base. And you try to increase the number of interactions you have with that patient and take care of more of their care needs. That's good business long-term, but you're never going to get that unless you can establish a way to fund that. And that's the way you fund that is with short-term growth. And if we can, like what we laid out with, use the data to put forth a really intelligent and thoughtful plan, you'll get those short-term growth wins, and you'll get that revenue to actually fund the efforts to improve, seamlessness in terms of patient consumer experience, as well as less of the friction they feel when they interact with their health system today.
Thank you, John. All that was fascinating. I find it interesting, and I'm sure all of you who have any experience with SG2 know that there's language that we all speak, and then there's SG2 language, which I love. It's like, okay, what's the new word that SG2 is going to use? And the new one is frictionless, friction-free. And we all know what friction means and friction-free means. We always would say the path of least resistance, be the organization that's easiest to do business with, because we win business by default by being easier, even if we're not the best. So I love that the friction-free, and it's fun to say as well. And also the whole lifetime consumer is something that we all aspire, right? Once we have them, we want to win them for life, but no one's really talked about that before and had that as a long-term strategy. It may have been intuitive, but I think that really raising that definition and just the words to top of mind is going to be a game changer. And not just thinking, I just want you for your one surgery, but I want you for all your surgeries and all your care and all your family's care. And that's what you're talking about when we're talking about that kind of loyalty. But I love it. Lifetime. That's good. Thank you. All right, so now we are going to move to you, Adrian. Tell us why ShareMD Connect. So again, healthcare's leader in engaging the right healthcare consumers, delivering the right message and education, and generating demand for the client provider services. So why are you guys a part of this partnership? Why did you think it made sense to join forces? And probably more important to our audience, what's in it for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, ShareMD Connect goes out and mines consumer demand in the marketplace. So we focus on high lifetime value patients. We go out, we identify them, we engage them, and ultimately we qualify and hand them off to our health system partners. But that can't be done in a vacuum. We can send patients all day long, but if they're hitting a brick wall, or if that's not driving growth for the health system, it really doesn't matter. And so that's why we love this combined solution. SG2, with their insights, with their analysis of the market, they can really uncover where are there opportunities to grow by service line, by condition, by patient type, by procedure. Where should a health system be focusing their efforts? And then on the Tiller-Hewitt side, you guys can go in, you understand what operational changes need to take place to unlock latent capacity. So we can unlock new opportunities that may not have existed prior. So once those opportunities have been unlocked, and once that plan for growth has been outlined, ShareMD Connect can come in and basically fill that new capacity, fill in that new capacity gap. So that's why we think this whole thing works extremely well. What's in it for our health system partners? As I mentioned, we go out and we mine demand in the marketplace. This is a comprehensive solution. So again, based on where there are opportunities for growth, we identify the healthcare consumers that are going to fuel that growth. We engage them virtually. We nurture that relationship. We profile these consumers. We educate them. We motivate them to take action. And then ultimately, we qualify them and hand them off to our health system partner. So we do all that work ourselves as ShareMD Connect. Once we have a qualified patient who's ready to schedule care, often for a valuable procedure, and we can get into what some of those examples are, but we hand them off directly. So unlike other solutions that are strictly technology focused, that may generate leads or may help you gain momentum digitally, we actually take the extra step, qualify patients with a medical professional, in the form of one of our nurses. And then we hand off a patient to your health system at the point of care that they should be along your system of care to schedule. So these are healthcare consumers that are ready to schedule care with your organization and have been clinically qualified by a healthcare professional. And so we can jump into the slides and I'll explain a bit more about our process and why it's valuable. Really, this really touches on what John was mentioning. When we first started looking at this, there are a lot of disruptive solutions coming into healthcare from the technology side, primary care disruptors like One Medical. It's created this shifting landscape for health systems. The use of the referral, kind of a common construct in healthcare, is declining and continues to decline since 2018. The typical approach, specifically for marketing that we saw, was for health systems to hang their shingle out, say, we're here, we provide these services, and then sort of react as patients come through their door. Really what needs to happen now is this shift to a proactive stance where health systems can generate demand for their services. They can go out and they can engage consumers, as healthcare consumers, to really offer something more valuable and to begin the relationship earlier, so the consumer as a patient makes their way to that health system specifically. The next slide, the way we envision doing this and what's common now is to provide an elevated customer experience. From 81% of hospitals and health systems nationwide, they understand that customer experience is this high priority, but very few feel they have the capabilities to execute on a best-in-class model. What we've done at ShareMD Connect, and I can highlight on the next slide, yes, we have a lot of technology. Yes, we have implemented a ton of digital tactics to go out and identify and engage healthcare consumers. That gets us far down the line. That helps us begin the relationship digitally. But what really moves the needle is by lifting the best part of the healthcare experience, which is that one-to-one communication with a healthcare professional, lifting it out of the clinical setting and putting it into the consumer space or into a virtual setting. So we do that with a team of highly skilled, highly trained, highly experienced nurses that bring that empathy and that knowledge that you would find in a typical visit, and they bring that direct to consumer. This is free for the healthcare consumer. It's open-ended. Our average call is almost 40 minutes, and our tagline is helping consumers know what to do is what we do. So these nurses are there to simply one-to-one help consumers understand what their next steps may be, what their options are based on their condition, based on the procedure options. What does this look like for them? The nurses get rave reviews from a consumer satisfaction score perspective. And typically, we see about almost a 60% transfer rate. So in the first call that a consumer has with one of our nurses, they go ahead, they're qualified by the nurse, and they transfer to our provider partner to schedule care. A little bit on the technology piece. So the next slide, the way we bolt all of this together into a comprehensive solution is by first analyzing consumer data. So we see this, our identification piece is to aggregate an enormous amount of data, all consumer data, all of our own data. So we don't rely on our health system partners for the data itself, but we basically model custom audiences based on a few different things. First and foremost, we look at ailments and risk factors. So who in the marketplace is suffering from something specific? That allows us kind of initially to reach a level of specificity that's relatively uncommon in most marketing efforts. From there, it's not just about understanding who has a certain condition or who might be suffering from a specific ailment, but how do we speak to them as a healthcare consumer? How do we engage them appropriately? What's the right message for someone that does not necessarily have great access to healthcare, that might be in a rural area, versus someone who is in an urban area that has high quality access to a lot of different providers? Those messages are different. That messaging is different. So we've married that how do we speak to them with the who are they, who is suffering from something specific. And so then we can craft our engagement strategies around that. So we can deploy numerous touch points into the digital marketplace, begin the relationship online, nurture these potential patients, and ultimately lead all of them to our nurse education team. So you see at the bottom, the educate and activate. This is what's critical. I think a lot of these solutions and a lot of what's taking place in healthcare now is kind of, in most industries, is a rush to the technology solutions. And those are extremely helpful. And obviously you see here, we have those as well. But what actually moves the needle, what we found, especially with these complicated, high lifetime value patients, is that human touch, is that interaction with a medical professional. A ton of trust and credibility is built on these calls, and we're able to leverage that and transfer that trust and credibility directly to our health system partners. So this is our comprehensive solution to, again, go out, we mine demand for specific services in the marketplace, we engage, we educate, we motivate, and then we ultimately qualify healthcare consumers for our health system partners, and then we hand them off directly at the front door that they should be at to schedule care. It can exist both as a comprehensive solution, and then we hear a lot of times, well, we already have really powerful marketing campaigns, or we're targeting something specific. And that's great too. We can also operate in a model where we bolt our education and activation team and the nurture process that goes along with that into your existing marketing efforts. One additional point in terms of what's in it for the health system. As a comprehensive solution, I mentioned we go out and we engage the marketplace as ourselves, and we introduce our provider partner once we have qualified a particular healthcare consumer for a particular service. By engaging these consumers as ShareMD Connect, we actually are able to circumvent HIPAA rules, which protects our partner, especially with the new OCR guidelines that have come out, which have a pretty major impact on marketing efforts and working with third parties in the marketing space. This really frees health systems of a lot of the entanglement that exists right now in terms of the HIPAA rules. So the comprehensive approach works well in a compliant way to quickly drive new volume for existing services.
Wow. All I have to say is wow about all of that, because it's so laser focused. I do know that I personally witness physicians, and especially the chief medical officer, salivate over this, how they can bring this kind of laser, the right patients to the physicians. You know, we all have referral lines. Our hospitals all have referral lines they can call and say, I need an orthopedic. But you guys are so laser focused on finding the patient, qualifying the patient, and hand delivering the patient right to the provider's door, which I love.
Yeah, and just to touch on that a little bit, just to give an example. So for cardio service line, for example, we'll engage valve disease patients, we'll engage AFib patients, but mostly those who are in need of specific procedures that drive that short-term revenue lift. So for valve disease, that might be a TAVR or a MitraClip procedure. For AFib, that might be a Watchman. So those are the types of patients we're engaging and qualifying and handing off to your health system. And we get great feedback on both sides of the coin. So from the consumer, they love the experience. Again, it's free. It's just a valuable service for them. They get their questions answered. And a more educated patient is a much more valuable patient to the health system. So on the other side, the physicians we work with love it, because we often heard, as we were starting this, about half the patients that are in my office shouldn't be here yet, or they should have been, they should have been getting an echo or something different before they make it to me. We recently worked with a health system here in the South, and the lead surgeon at the Valve Center said in a follow, I'm drawing a lot less diagrams. Like, these patients are coming in, they understand, what's going on with them. They understand what a valve is, and I don't have to do all of that prep work. And more importantly, they have the information they need. They're prepared for our visit. So it's an accelerant for these physicians as well. And really, it's a kind of an optimization for them.
I love that. Tommy and John, do you guys have anything now to add, now that you've heard the other partners talk in terms of what our audience how they could use this? And even, let's just say today, they're like, this is a great partnership. I don't know if I can call you guys, or some of you are already SG2 clients or Vizient clients. You're already part of this partnership. Look at what you may not be accessing. So that's one thing that I want to say for sure. Second is just listening to this solution as a whole. I think oftentimes there are pieces and parts of it that you can start on your own. Like, you never want to create a plan without doing an assessment. That's like diagnosing something with a patient without laying their hands on it. And you also want to have a lot of stakeholder involvement. So you're asking the questions around the why is it hard? And if you have a great liaison team, they're out there asking that every day. But if it's falling back on deaf ears of the organization and we're not fixing what they're telling us is broken and preventing them from doing business with us, it's almost like shame on us. And do we really deserve that business? So I still feel like that there are some things that, this is not about a sales job for everyone today. It's about telling you what a comprehensive solution looks like. If you're looking to drive in multiple $1-million results, even in year one, to fund your long-term planning, if you do this comprehensive approach, you will see that kind of results. And we put a couple case studies in the chat just so you can see pre-partnership, the kind of results that we were able to achieve. Now we layer that on top of this partnership, you can double or triple those results in year one. It's off the chart. So starting with the assessment, getting your stakeholder involvement, creating a playbook, making sure you're removing the barriers before you send teams out to ask for more business, fix what's broken, or come up with some side door solution that you can work around the problems until you fix it. That's what we do through our process improvement events. We had one organization that was literally leaking $1 million a year out of their own employed enterprise to the competition across town for things that they can deliver. Tommy, were you going to say something?
100 million, not 1 million.
Oh, I said 1 million. Oh, 100 million. Yeah, that's a big difference. And so the data showed us that showed us what was happening. We had to go on site to find out the why. And the why was all about access barriers. We can't get in. They want to assess a chart before they take the patient, where the competition was saying, send them over. So that's where we engage stakeholders to say, okay, we want to hear what's going on. I mean, really, we have the data that shows your practice literally leaked $10 million last year. Is that right? And they're super candid at that point, because we're not there to beat them up. We're there to understand what is going on and how can we earn their business, and then work operationally to improve the operations to make it easy. And Adrian talked about latent capacity, which is kind of a fuzzy term that some people are like, I think I get that, but I don't know. It's capacity that we have that we don't think we have. Because, and Tommy, I would love for you, I love your description of the confusion between capacity and access. Will you share that?
Sure. So, I think it goes something like, access issues masquerade as capacity issues if you're not looking very closely. So oftentimes organizations confuse the two. So when we talk about side doors or latent capacity, basically, what that means in a nutshell is we have the capacity, we just don't know we have it because the access is so challenged that it appears as though we have a capacity challenge, which is where Adrian's solution comes in so beautifully, that we're handing off patients directly to the right practices, and where the partnership works so well, because as we uncover opportunities for growth in individual service lines, practices, procedures, we can then fill that latent capacity through multiple channels. We're out for referral sources. ShareMD Connect is out driving patients directly in. And ultimately, if everyone's rowing in the same direction, we get there a heck of a lot faster. That's the nutshell of what this partnership does. It gets us there faster, and it gets us a little further.
And don't forget, the short-term solution is only building for this robust long-term game plan that SG2 is so famous for. And, just seeing the market dynamics and the trends and the modelers that we can build together, it's off the chart. So if you're looking for a competitive advantage, here's your answer. Even if you have to kind of start some of the legwork yourself to show the momentum, to say, okay, now we need a partner, or how about we need to access someone that we're already partners with or members of, whether it's Vizient or SG2, or you're already part of Tiller-Hewitt in some other form or fashion.
Speaking of, I just saw a text. Got a text from the chief strategy officer, the client you mentioned, and said 1 million instead of 100. And he said, I sure wish it would have been $1 million.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that, Jason. I didn't mean to misrepresent. So, yeah. Thank you for correcting me. Yeah, it's 1 million just doesn't sound crazy when it's really 100 million.
We're getting close to 1 million.
So $100 million in 1 year going across town for services that they provided. And it ended up being not a really hard fix. It was just awareness. You know, when the person that Tommy's just talking about, the tech, when they stood up these service line growth teams, the cardiologists were happy to say, here's why I'm sending my business across town. There's a 2.5 hour wait or a 6-month wait to get into our services. So we were able to do a process improvement event that was able to identify and fix that. When you get all the players in the same room, hearing the same message and the same goal, it's amazing what you can accomplish.
Yeah, I think it really, Tammy, it really comes down to 4 things. It's like being able to do the analysis, and then helping with the navigation to navigate where that problem is or those problems are, and then creating the connection points because everything's so siloed, and then having a framework to measure success.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the 4 key aspects that I think that this joint solution, they were mandatories. We needed to have some type of response or some type of activation or solution for each of those four pillars.
Well, I want to thank our panelists, and I want to thank everybody who's here today. I hope you took away a lot of ideas and concepts that you can put into play, or you know who to talk to if you need help with your journey. So Adrian, John, Tommy, thank you so much for participating today.
Thanks
Thanks
everyone.
so much. Great. Take care.
Bye-bye.